Good morning and welcome to Hump Day Hallelujah. I'm Pastor Scott, coming to you from Ascension Lutheran Church in Citrus Heights. And on this Wednesday morning, I am donning my San Francisco Giants shirt. It's been a tough season, my friends. If you're a baseball fan, you may be well aware. If you're a Giants fan, you are painfully aware that when the season started on March 30th, we were full of hope and possibility of what might happen, what might come, how the season might end. And while we aren't officially at the end, the number of games is rapidly declining and the Giants' standing is not rising enough, or place in the standing is not rising enough. We have not been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but we've made it real difficult on ourselves. And that got me to thinking, as we are nearing the end of the baseball season and remembering what it was like at the beginning, got me thinking about other seasons and other times in our lives when we start something full of hope and imagine what might come, and yet we're not quite sure of what the outcome might be. And that in-between time, the time between when it started and when it's ended and we get to where we are going, at times it can be challenging. The Giants sure had some challenging stretches during the season. At times they played great baseball. At other times they played really poor baseball, and we began to wonder, do they even care? But the reality is the season is long. From March 30th to October 1st, that's a long time to sustain. And like many things in life, it can be difficult in that in-between time to sustain, to have the energy to move on, to press on, to go forward. We're beginning a new ministry season here at Ascension, and many churches are here in the fall, and things kind of wrap up for the summer programs, and people are done with their travels by and large. And people are back to work and back to school and back to normal schedules as the weather changes here. And as we begin these new programs and exciting new things, we don't know what's going to happen. But what we do know, just like through this baseball season, just like through other times of our lives, that in the midst, in that middle, in that in-between time, that God will remain with us and be faithful to us. And all we need to do is be faithful to God in the midst of it, to continue on, to persevere, even when it gets difficult. Starting October 1st, actually the last day of the regular season of Major League Baseball. On that Sunday, we're beginning a new ministry season here at Ascension, where we're moving to 2 worship services. We're making this move not because it's become too crowded in our sanctuary for the one service. It's full, but we still have space. But we're doing this in an effort to expand our ministry to people who have different worship music style preferences. So we're going to have an early service. We're calling a classic service at 8:30 with the hymns, those classic hymns that you remember singing from yesterday, that are long familiar hymns. And then at 11 o'clock we'll have a worship service really featuring more modern music. Otherwise, the services will be largely the same, a lot of the same elements, but it's really that music that will change the feel of that worship experience. We'll have a band at that second service, 11 o'clock, and we'll have the piano accompanying our singing at that first service. Friends, we don't know what's going to happen during the course after we begin this new ministry season. But what we do know is that God will be faithful to us if we are faithful to God. This Sunday, in fact, I'm preaching from Genesis 32 and the story of Jacob wrestling with God overnight. And I think one of the interesting things about that story is that as Jacob and this man, this God figure who Jacob is wrestling with, is that there's a desire by both of them to stay connected. And when the wrestling ends and God tells Jacob that he needs to let go of him because the sun is coming up, that Jacob does in fact let go of God and is able to move on and is saved. So he doesn't see the face of God, which if he had, he surely would have died, as we read in the Old Testament. But we don't believe that when Jacob released God and God was no longer touching Jacob, that God left Jacob. God continued on with Jacob in a different way, no longer wrestling, but accompanying him. And the next morning we know that Jacob went to meet his brother Esau, and Jacob was afraid. He was afraid of what might happen in that interaction because 20 years earlier he had wronged him. Jacob had stolen his birthright. So when they came together, Jacob fell to the ground in humility and probably out of fear as well. And Esau, his brother, ran up to him and hugged him and forgave him. My friends, God was with Jacob throughout that night and into the next day. And that started something new for the two of them and their relationship together. In the wrestling, we know that Jacob's name is changed to Israel, and thereby Jacob becomes Israel, the father of the nation of the Israelites. His sons become the 12 tribes of Israel. Something new was beginning, and God showed up in a new and remarkable and surprising way. As we begin this new ministry year, let us too be faithful, turning to God, wrestling with God, trusting in God to be present along the journey. And then let's expect God to show up in surprising, grace-filled, loving ways as well. It's been good spending this part of the day with you, and I look forward to seeing you next week for another Hump Day Hallelujah.